webinar.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Okay. Are we, Pete, are we unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, super. Then let's call the special town council meeting and workshop for Thursday, September 21st to order. Present in council chambers are councilors Kenny, Demerit, Marks, and myself, Councilor Wingard. Councilor Laraway will be joining us later. Councilor Berthasell will be joining us shortly online, and Councilor Powers will not be with us this evening. Our first item is a workshop to transition to automatic residential curbside collection of municipal solid waste and recycling. And Rob, do you want to introduce it or?
Sure. Rob Yerxa, Public Works Director for Orono. I'm here with Jim Dunning, who is
Market area manager.
Market Area Manager for Pine Tree Waste, which is the division of Casella, who we have contracted with to provide that service. So I just wanted to start out with a quick presentation about the process that we followed, and then discuss some issues that are specific to private roads that Jim and I have been grappling with as we work through the process of implementation. So just by way of background, the reason why we're here is that in June of 2023, our collection contract with Pine Tree that we've had for the last 5 years expired. So the town, in preparation for that, put out an RFP for the, maybe on the next slide. Put out an RFP for collection services. The way the proposal request was written was that it requested services to mirror the ones that we were currently providing. But it also allowed for knowing that technology and processes were advancing. Town wanted to allow for alternative possibilities for the delivery of the service that didn't necessarily meet the specifications of the RFP. So we advertised that throughout the month of June, and on July 6th, we opened up the proposals. The town only received one proposal. It was from Pine Tree, and that proposal was to provide a alternative delivery of the service, which was automated side load collection. So I have a short video in the proposal that will show how the side load process will look.
I'm not sure that sound, you're not gonna get the benefit of sound from my machine.
Okay, well, it's
But,
just
sorry.
it's a fun little jingle going in the back.
A super quiet truck, which is good, right?
It actually is a little quieter than that. So you can see this truck does load on the side, and it puts it in kind of the front of the collection bin. And there's an arm that comes off the side. You'll see it here in a minute. This arm will actually reach out and collect, pick up the bin, dump it into the appropriate bin on the truck. So the trucks that Jim is proposing to use will actually have a split hopper. So it will be able to collect trash on one side and recycling on another. So the collection will actually happen for both trash and recycling simultaneously with one vehicle.
And we promise it's going to 2 different places.
Yes, and then that material will be delivered.
80%.
Approximately 83% will be recycled.
Hey, there you go. You like
Very
it.
good, Leo.
Nice. Don't have to tell us twice. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do, but the truck has it's got a metal divider down the center of it, and then the driver just flips a switch after he hits one. He flips a switch, and by the time he inches forward to the next container, it's already repositioned to dump on the other side of the hopper on the top of the truck. So it's pretty seamless.
So Jim, you want to talk real quick about why Pine Tree proposed
Sure.
this
So
process?
some of the folks here have already heard the reasons, but for those that haven't and those that are listening, you know, the biggest thing for us and why we're converting our routes to the automated collection is the fact that it's a much safer way of doing business. A lot of people don't realize it, but a sanitation worker on the back of a garbage truck is one of the 5 deadliest jobs in the country based on many, many studies that have been done out there. We have our fair share of misses on a regular basis. There have been fatalities within the region related to this type of work. And as technology has improved, we found ways that we can do things in a far safer way, a more efficient way. This method of co-collection, our vehicle is actually just running the streets of Orono one time. Instead of having 2 trucks out there every other week, we will be collecting trash and recycling at the same time every single week. So residents will actually get a higher level of service, but at the same time, it's less impact on the roadways, less opportunity for public safety issues, concerns with our vehicle and other vehicles because we're on the road that less often. So there's a variety of benefits related to why we're moving in this direction. We shifted the city of Bangor to automated side load 3 years ago. It's worked extremely well. The city of Old Town is actually in the process of a conversion as well. And this is the way that we're moving forward with our municipal collection. We've done a lot of conversions recently down in the southern part of the state to the automated side load. Again, it's for the safety of our employees, the safety of the public. And if we can do it in a way that is more efficient, why not do it that way? So those are the real core reasons that we're making this shift.
That's going to mean we're going to need to transition. So what's the timing of that transition? So Jim and I have been working on all the details in terms of getting all the addresses listed out, working on Jim just recently presented a draft copy of what the routes may look like. So we've been working through all of those details. And so we're getting ready to start providing all our education outreach materials that we've developed. The first thing that people will see, will be this public meeting that we're talking about it in now. The next will be a postcard that's being sent out that Pine Tree has put together that will give people details about what to expect, when to expect their bins to be delivered, and what route, what day they'll be will be their collection day. There'll also be a mailer that we're going to put together and send out in addition to the postcard sent by Pine Tree. It will have a lot of the same information, but just another attempt to make sure that we get out there as much as we can. When the bins are delivered, all of the information about how to use the bins, what materials are acceptable for the trash side and the recycling side, all that type of information will be taped onto the inside of the lid.
It'll be tucked in the lid, so there'll be a card hanger that's tucked in the lid, and it will also have the collection schedule. You'll know what day their street is serviced on, the most frequently asked questions as far as container placement, things of that sort. So that'll be right there. So that if somebody happened to be out of town, seasonal resident who knows what the case could be, they missed any of the other outreach, when that shows up at the end of their driveway and they see it, it's got an attachment on it and you've got all the information right there, as well as a link to a website that will have this other collateral, so that if somebody missed it, they can click on it and they can see what went out in the postcard mailer and street map and things of that sort.
So that will be the third published information on education outreach. And then, of course, we'll be putting all that stuff on Facebook and make available on the website, all the other social media outlets that we use. In October, probably the first week of October, the bins will deploy. Delivery on schedule, Jim?
Yeah, so they'll start coming out, I would say probably that, I believe it's Tuesday or Wednesday, the 4th.
Yeah.
That we start to see them showing up.
So people should start seeing those bins delivered And then the week of the 18th of October, it will be the first week that the automated side load truck will make a trip around. And that will be, there'll be a little bit of overlap in terms of making sure that everybody has had a chance to get the information. So if people, especially for where there are a number of people, a number of parts of the community that will be switching day, because we're going from 2 days to 3 days, they'll be getting getting a little bit of leeway there where we let people kind of figure things out.
Yeah, we're gonna continue to run the traditional rear load packer truck, to be able to make sure we get everything off the street. We'll leave stickers behind if people have their container in the wrong place or the wrong day, just reminding people what the criteria are for the collection.
Oh, if you run the new truck, then there's no kind of hand loading it.
Nope. So you've got to get it way up top there. So that would be an opportunity for injury if we had guys trying to sling their trash all the way up there. So we don't want to do that.
So that's a few changes, but let's talk more specifically about the changes that will happen. So the most obvious change is the equipment that we use to collect is going to change. It's bigger. It's a far more expensive unit, I believe.
Yes,
A little bit more technical. It requires that the trash and recycling be placed out in those bins provided, so that the truck can actually pick them up. Again, we've talked about it, but it's a single vehicle that will go around. Yeah, and there's a bin right there. For example, it's a 96-gallon bin. So weekly, a normal residential home should be able to fit everything they need in that. It's a single vehicle, like we talked about, that collects both trash and recycling. We're going from a 2-route system, so Thursday to Friday, to a 3-route system, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And people will be given information about what those routes are. We'll post all that everywhere. And then there's the private road collection part. And that's really why we're here tonight. So one of the challenges that Jim and I have been trying to work through is how we can handle collection on private roads. Right now, private roads are serviced in a number of different ways. For some, this system will work just fine. For others, it's nearly impossible to do. So, like I said, we service roads in 5 different ways right now. Private roads, for some, don't receive any collection services at all. Many take their trash to the end of the private road and put it on the nearest intersecting public way. Some receive curbside collection only during the summer months, and then there's a dumpster at the end of the road during the winter. And then some receive year-round collection, but only when the weather is good and the road has been maintained. And then some of the other private roads, which are closer to the main roads, get serviced year-round anyway. So
Can I interrupt for just a minute?
Mhm.
I just want to clarify in case people don't remember. But when we talk about this collection, it is only for residential properties. So that is 4 units or less. And so what we consider a unit is a unit of a structure, but also for condominiums, if they're in separate ownership, that is, each one of those are a separate entity. They're not, so you have some combined properties that have multiple units, but they're all in separate ownership, therefore they would receive service under the curbside collection.
yeah, and I can give you some examples
Yeah.
of that.
The other issue is if somebody put a subdivision in and went through the planning board and said they were gonna take care of their trash, that was a condition of the approval, so we do not extend trash service to them there.
Right.
I just wanted to remind people We can break in the middle of.
So even if there's a condo association, even though they're individuals, they're still, in some cases. they're-
As long as it's not common ownership.
So an example of a private road, that you wouldn't normally, it's not as typical as, say, Elliott's Landing or Perka would be the Whispering Pines development on Colburn Drive. So Whispering Pines is a system of condominiums that are owned by individuals. And then they have a association that they're all bound to for grounds maintenance and things like that. But essentially their private road is their parking lot. So they qualify for collection today because they're an individually owned property in a complex. But for example, the next set of condominiums down are rented or leased with one common owner on a common parcel. Now you have a single parcel with several units on it, doesn't qualify. So
I was just curious, do we have a number of households that are gonna be in a situation where their existing style of pickup, whether it's at the end of their road or only certain seasons of the year or only when roads are cleared, like how many households are we talking total that are affected?
So it's 146.
yeah, I was gonna say it was between 125 and 150 in that range.
Thank you.
Tier 1 or tier 2?
All told,
One
yeah.
and two.
So our first approach and really the one that I think makes the most sense is to look at private roads in a similar way that we look at rental units. So the tier 1 and tier 2 that you just mentioned breaks the roads up into two different groups. The first tier is private roads that access 4 or less residences or parcels. So in most of these cases, these are more or less extended driveways that access two different, maybe 2 or 3. And so having those residents bring their bins out to the nearest intersecting public way, Forest Avenue, Park Street, Main Street, isn't going to be any different really than what they're doing now. But there'll be room out there too to accommodate that process. So we looked at that, and a very large number of the parcels that of the roads that are on that list are indeed tier 1. And the plan would be to proceed and collect those properties on those roads as we would do the rest of the community. Tier 2 roads are roads that access more than 4, so 5 or more residents or parcels. These are where the challenge starts, because if we, for example, right now, residents of Perka Rock bring all of their trash out to Forest Avenue every Thursday. There are 15 or 20 residents on that road, if not more. That would mean that on a collection day for Perka Rock, if we ask them to bring them all out, first off, they'd have to get 2 of those bins out to the end of the road, which is a lot more than just throwing a bag in your trunk. But there would be 30 plus bins lined on Forest Avenue at the end. So it's just not a practical approach for that. So we really kind of worked with Jim to try to figure out what are some alternatives to doing this, because the equipment really can't go down some of these private roads on a consistent basis. So that's really what we're trying to do, is provide a sustainable method for making sure that those residents have resident options for their residential waste. So, if you look at the map there, so that's the list and the map of all of the
Sorry.
tier 1 and tier 2 roads. So off the list, roads that are tier 2 roads are Colburn Drive, which is really the Whispering Pines development. 24 Lane, Elliott's Landing Road, Gould Road, Hemlock Point Road, Croker Rock Landing Road, Shore Drive, which is really Webster Point, and Wallace Lane.
Sure, I was wondering where that was. That's Webster Point.
Webster Point, which, yeah, at the end of North Main Avenue,
How many units are in there?
8, I believe.
How many households are in this tier 2 category total? Ish.
We would have to check, but it's probably half of that, so 60, 70. So we developed some options, so for discussion. That the town could pursue to provide this service. The first would be to follow the letter of the ordinance and not provide collection services for those residents. So it would be up to the road associations or individuals on those roads to make accommodations for their trash collection. Which there are a number of places out there that do provide, that handle their trash in probably the private contract. I would suggest if that were the approach, the second option would be to permit and to build and permit a transfer station at the landfill site. If we were to do that, residents would be able to bring their trash to that location on Wednesdays and Saturdays when it was open, or council could choose to offer more hours whenever they wanted to. Almost a little bit higher level of service than they have now, when they have to drag their trash to the end of the road, specifically on a Thursday by by 7 a.m. So that option would come with a bit of a cost for the town. I'm estimating around $42,000 to build the collection pad and get the bins there. And then depending on how much waste we actually end up collecting there, it would be about a $12,500 annual cost. That would be for rental of the bins that we provide at the site to collect, and then having those bins hauled off and processed.
The process already in there technically or no? When if we already were hauling from them?
Not MSW and recycling, so that would be a new aspect. There would be a new permit that we would need to get through DEP.
No, he's saying it would already be in the collection contract, but
Oh, no,
But are we picking up where if we've been picking up there, now we're gonna pick it up somewhere else in the dumpster, wouldn't that already have been?
right.
The old agreement included how we were doing it, but the new agreement does not. Because the new agreement is for the public roads.
So the old agreement covered the private roads, even though private roads by ordinance didn't have to.
Bit of a legacy type of situation that
Yeah,
for
so that,
15 years,
more than
we-
that.
yeah, even prior to that, because I live on a private road. So I'll keep my personal opinions separate from business, but I've lived out there for 21 years and my road was always serviced even before we were the provider 15 years ago.
So no one ever wrote you a ticket for
So-
breaking the law or that.
for many, many years, there were handshakes with the town for things like that, and that's why you've got such a varying level of service that was provided. So,
If council were to want to look at the transfer station at the landfill, when you made that decision, you also have to make the decision of, are we limiting it to private roads or opening it up to everybody, because those are two very different sized pieces of equipment, and it would require a whole new permitting process if we started small and made it big later. It's not simple.
Just calling it a transfer station, but I mean, is it effectively a couple dumpsters?
Still a transfer
It needs
station.
probably, it's still a transfer station.
Yeah. And maybe just. Should we ask questions now or you want to keep talking? Sorry.
However you want to do it, you're the.
I was just curious if we were to put dumpsters there and allow like, and have it be a daily or every other day pickup and allow people to put their stuff in there. I know there's a potential problem of people that live somewhere else doing that, but in Orono, it wouldn't seem like it would be a big problem because everyone else has a 96-gallon can in their yard that they're not going to need to run to another dumpster. But it could that be a potential option? Just to have a dumpster there for people?
But you can't.
You can't.
No, you can't. Under
Well,
state law, under state law, if the town
Oh, you mean
drops a
sitting there?
dumpster for
Yeah.
multiple entities to put trash into, doesn't matter how many of them, it doesn't matter how big it is. Under state law, is classified as a transfer station. And it requires an amendment to our current landfill license to be able to do that. And with that, it's not just the dumpster, it's a pad, it's containment, it's a fence that's locked and supervised. So you can't even say, people, you can go whenever you want, just drop it in. It has to be fully secured if it's not being attended by somebody who has a landfill / transfer station certification.
That's why we would have it
Uh,
inside. We would need to locate it on the site
Gotcha.
behind the gate so that it would be attended. And all
Makes
that.
sense.
And there'd be that's about a 6-month permitting process. And like I said, the costs to build the pad and get a site drainage squared away, whatever the DEP asks for. I'm estimating to be around $40,000 total to get it permitted and built. And then we dump those we could collect recycling and MSW there, so residents of all the private roads could bring their recycling and MSW there Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8 to 4.
Thanks.
And then if council wanted to expand those hours, we just need to staff that. A third option that we thought of was providing a dumpster specific to each road. So it's kind of the way when, for example, if you live on Gould Road, as fall comes along here, it's coming up pretty quickly. We stop sending the truck down the road. There's a dumpster provided at Gould's Landing for those who live there to put materials in, and it works okay. We have some issues with it. It gets abused sometimes. And that's really why it would be tough to manage if we had 8 of those in 8 different locations throughout. But tends to be, if it's really specific to the residents of that road, they tend to take care of it a little bit more too. So yeah, I'm sure we could make it work. That's a little bit more expensive on an annual basis. Because the larger collection site, single collection site, be far easier to manage. And it's a lot more expensive to implement, because we would need to create secure dumpster pads with like a paved pad with fence and surround around it. I'm estimating it's going to cost about $10,000 a piece, and we need 8 of them to build those. That's if we can get easements from the property owners that are immediately adjacent to the road.
And we still need to permit that.
And those would still carry a DEP permit with them.
Each need a permit.
Probably
We
do
could
one
probably
permit.
get a collective permit for it, but it would be a little complicated, far more complicated than the transfer station at the landfill site.
Could you envision one dumpster for MSW and one for recycling?
Yeah.
And so the cost quoted here, the 19,500 a year is the ongoing cost, but you said the cost to build would be how much for this?
I estimated that at 72,800.
Okay,
That would be the upfront cost to get the program up and running.
And Rob, Rob, I apologize. I think I misled you with the pricing because the $320 a week should have been for the dumpsters and the $375 a week should have been for the traditional.
So we just need to
okay.
flip
Yeah,
those.
flip those two prices. Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
That's helpful to know. I was looking at that and thinking like,
Yeah,
oh,
I assume that was probably me because
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
apologize for that.
Okay.
I might not have followed.
Well,
your-
we have it in print
the
here, so
response.
I'm sorry. we can't-
It's, you know, a little less than $20,000 for both of the options anyway.
Yeah.
The other option would be to kind of continue with the existing service, but contract with Pine Tree for a standard rear load route that would be specific to those private roads, that those tier 2 roads. And that cost was around 19,500.
And I misunderstood because I thought when we heard the first information on this, that you guys were getting rid of your whole fleet of rear.
So we still do rear load commercial.
Okay.
So there's a lot of commercial businesses where the front load trucks that we use for most of your commercial businesses, you see us come in, we dump the containers overhead. But there's still a lot of areas that are real tight, downtown Bangor, here in Orono, there's some spots that you just can't get those big trucks into. Also, we utilize those for some of the carts. You know, if you look at Mill Street, there are a lot of the carts that some of the businesses have. So we use a rear load truck. We bring the carts to it. It's got a cart dumper on the back to help the crew out. So it's not our preferred method, especially with municipalities when you're talking about tens of thousands of homes that we're servicing. But it is still something that's in existence. It's something that we could do on a small scale like this to continue to provide that type of service with that style of truck.
The downside of that is that it's an additional cost and still very weather dependent. So if you live on Parker Rock, you still got to bring yourself stuff all the way to the end. If you live on Elliott's Landing Road and the road is icy, they're still not gonna be able to get down. So some of those problems that we face every winter are still gonna be there. So that's kind of the downside to that.
And I think one of the things that Rob's not saying is when we have to stop collection in the winter time, there are some roads that have, you know, it's very organized. There's a road commissioner, there's one call and it's easy. When we had to stop, I think it was Elliott's Landing Road, people were incredibly frustrated because in order to get to them, we have to send out letters and we have to wait. If we're gonna send a letter out, we need to make sure we know what we're talking about. And by the time we got done, people were frustrated. Rob spent a lot of time on the telephone and we actually used a lot of staff time because I think we ended up putting out either 2 or 3 letters for that. So not just the cost of Jim, well, we appreciate the cost of Jim. It's also stretching an already pretty stretched workforce.
Rob and I had been out there a few times, looking at the road, evaluating the road. You know, it's a tough call.
Can we, and it's really, you know, it's.
And really our
Next Thursday
drivers,
morning.
it's hard to tell a driver, you need to go do that. When they tell us it's not safe and they're not comfortable going down it, because there's a lot of momentum behind these trucks if they're freighted with 10 tons of material on them. It's not like an oil delivery truck. It's far heavier. So once you get that momentum going down that icy hill, there's no stopping it. And it's risky. So we can't ask our drivers to do something that they feel is not safe. So we have to respect their boundary. And then Rob and I went out, we'd look at it, and then sometimes we'd make alternative options with a rack body truck to try to go get some of the stuff. Or I think Rob even took a trailer out there one time to
Yeah.
grab some stuff. So it is a very involved process with some of the private roads and the winter weather elements.
And do the neighborhoods, do they expect this every year? Does it happen every year? So they know it's coming at some point, or does it happen some years and not others? Like, is it, how consistent is it from a resident perspective?
It's a recurring,
Pretty much
certainly a
every-
recurring
Sure.
issue.
it got frequent enough that we felt like we had to send out letters to the residents to try to
I think we're seeing
explain the situation.
more of it as we deal more with ice, because when it's a public road that gets maintained in a certain way, we're able to stay ahead of the big packed down ice. When it's a private road that maybe might not be maintained in the same fashion, or can't be maintained in the same fashion because it's not built to that spec, ice gets packed down. And with that freeze thaw, I think we're seeing more of it. And, I think you can see it if you go out on dirt roads.
And the other aspect is in the spring mud season, these trucks have a tendency to, leave some pretty significant impressions in the soft road. And that's also, so we transition from the ice to that, and then the freeze thaw cycle, those ruts freeze, people aren't happy. So it is a challenge for the residents and for us alike.
So this is the
So-
salad time of year right there. Yeah, this is.
So those are the four options that Jim and I thought would be best operationally, and I feel like still provide a viable level of service to those affected by this change. But I don't want to speak for them. So we had this meeting because we felt like we wanted to get some input from people that live out there. But I also wanted to allow council to have some discussion and hopefully give us a little bit of direction on how to move forward here.
So in order to be able to meet the timeline in terms of getting transition for everybody else going to, we really need council direction. Rob is not wanting to be quite so forceful, but the reason we had a special meeting is because we really need direction tonight from you as to where we kind of want to go. Gonna go ahead and stop my screen share.
I'd like to, I think we can deliberate, but I'd really like to hear from residents first.
I want to listen first.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so we've got a couple people in council chambers, we've got a couple people online. Can you speak? Councilor Vaughn.
I have someone, oh,
Charles Hilberry, I guess I'm a tier 1 private road. A lot of the driveways out there, it's not just the private roads, it's really long. We're talking over 400 feet, mine is 400 feet. The neighbor who shares the same road is actually 500 feet. A little bit back behind me. A lot of the people out there are hired too. You're asking us to haul a 96-gallon trash can out to the end of our road, which doesn't even have a shoulder to put it on. It's gonna be sitting at the end of our driveway. So you want 4 trash cans blocking my driveway every week? So that way, if I have to leave, I have to move the trash cans into a safe spot, which there is no safe spot, because there is no shoulder on staff. I'm just, right now, I can haul my trash, I throw it in the back of the van, I can put it back, in a little spot, because it doesn't take up that much room. But how are we supposed to haul those down? You know what I'm saying? And it's not just the private roads, it's a lot of the driveways out there, they're just extremely long.
You not use a trash can now?
I do, it's the smallest one they make, literally, I can pick it up and throw it in the back of my van.
Gotcha.
But that, I can't put that. Fully loaded, I'm gonna keep breaking my back.
So what I have seen, just from experience, what some folks will do is they don't necessarily bring it all the way back and forth. If they do have a driveway that's that long and there's a place towards the end of their driveway that they can leave it, and then they put their stuff in it so that they don't have to lug it the whole way, that's an option. They are wheeled, they move very easily. I understand that it's not what you're accustomed to, and change is always difficult. And that's why, folks have looked at other ways. If they don't want to do that, that's personal choice as to how am I gonna get my material in the container at the end of my driveway. So if you had a spot where you wanted to leave it down there, I mean, that's your property. You're certainly free to do what you want with it. But there's nothing that says you have to bring it all the way back into your home.
Just leave it by the road.
I wouldn't leave it on the side of the road, but
But I mean, that's where they're
Back.
picking it up though, from the truck, right? From the
yes,
side of the
you
road.
would have to, on the collection morning, you'd have to get it close to the edge of the road so that we could pick it up. But if it was something, if you've got that much space and you felt like it was better to just have it sit down towards the end of your driveway so you could just put your bags in it, I mean, that's what I would do personally, if I didn't want to lug it all the way down.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about, but also even with the transfer station for residential too, I was thinking about that. So we have to pay extra gas money to take out our trash on top of the high property taxes. I mean, that's what it comes out to, correct? It's more work for us for less work from time state.
I'm gonna keep my personal opinions to myself, being an Orono resident who lives on a private road, so I don't want to muddy the waters there. So that's up for, you
I
know,
mean, that's the right idea. We
interpretation
get
and
less
perception.
service, but we still pay the same amount of property tax as everybody else based on evaluation. Correct? I mean,
Yeah, you mean you're on a
I
well,
mean-
you're on a well and septic out there and all of
I
that.
mean, no offense, it's not like you guys provide water out there or
Right.
natural gas or anything else. So, I mean, it's just another thing you keep adding to the tab that we pay for.
And I think it could sit at the end, it couldn't sit out on the road anyway, but it could sit at the end of your driveway as he was talking about as far as where it could be stored, because I think we have to have them off the road by the next day or something typically.
We haven't heard any other option yet, right, for tier one, other than this option to have the bins out at the end of the road. That is the only tier one option that exists.
That's, yeah.
Just clarifying.
So
And I, sorry, I have a question for the gentleman first.
I was just gonna say, we have John Dudley with his hand raised.
Do you want to
I
ask?
just
who
have a
we're-
follow-up question for this gentleman. I didn't catch your name, sorry.
Donald?
Donald, my follow-up question was just, do you feel like it would be helpful to you to have both options, to either have this bin that you have to somehow maneuver to the end of your road, but to also have a transfer station option? Or would it just not matter? The transfer station option wouldn't make your life any better?
No, that wouldn't make
Yeah.
sense, because I'm still hauling it even
Thank you.
further.
Yeah, just checking. Thank you.
All right, let's have our online. John, go ahead, please. We can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, John Dudley here. I'm the point of contact for Gould Road. First of all, I would like to extend kudos to Rob Yerxa for his efforts. We live next to a public park at Gould Landing. Rob's efforts at communication have been exemplary. Anytime I've had an issue, Rob has probably already thought of it and has thought of solutions. So currently, Gould Road is tier 2 as I see it. We have seasonal pickup on the road in the summertime, and then we have dumpsters during the winter. I see the most logical solution for Gould Road is to go to 12-month dumpster pickup. We already have a pad, we have an enclosure. That would be, from everything else that I've seen, that would be the most logical solution for Gould Road.
Thank you.
We have Mark Galt.
Okay. Yes, Mark's available.
Yeah, hello. Am I coming through?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm on Hemlock Point Road. And one question for John Dudley on the on Gould Road, though. You got the porta potties that use that same pad there in the summertime. You're going to need a solution for that, I think, if you decide to make that year-round trash pad. But my question actually concerns the transfer station option. Would we still be required to use the issued bins at the transfer station, or would it simply be bring your own bags and toss them in a dumpster?
Yeah, that would be the approach, Mark. We would, you would just come in on a regular operating day with your recycling and trash, and there'd be dumpsters available for both of those.
So we wouldn't need to use the automated lifting system or anything. So we could use whatever container we wanted to bring the trash there.
Correct.
So that
I
might
would
help
think-
the gentleman that was talking about not being able to fit things in his van.
I would also think that in order to access the landfill, you're required to have a sticker, costs $25 a year. I would think to individuals on private roads, that would just become something that we could give them.
You would provide those.
We
yeah.
would provide those, so you're not having to pay to dispose of that.
So free dump sticker if you're a person for whom the transfer station was your option, if we decide to go that route.
I think I would mention, if you did have your transfer station open to all residents, you should expect to see quite a difference in your cost structure. So that's something that you may want to be mindful of if you open it up to anyone and everyone
Yeah,
to utilize that for the trash, because I think you may see more opportunity there present itself.
Yeah, I think I personally wasn't thinking about shifting to that for everyone, although I was curious about some of these tier 2 neighborhoods that are over on Park Street or just off Park Street. I know that there's sort of disproportionately housing there where not all residents are gonna have cars. And so I'm a little bit curious about the accessibility of driving to a transfer station, and am curious if you've thought through sort of a hybrid model with maybe the transfer station option for folks out by Pushaw, where maybe that's more convenient, and then like a dumpster somewhere along Park Street as another option for people who might need something more local.
Yeah, so, I mean, a fourth option would be, you know, I get to work and kind of individually create a plan to deal with each of the roads. It just would need first support from you on doing that, and a little bit of guidance on what options we can offer you. So, you know, like John said, maybe the dumpster at the end of Gould Road does make a little bit more sense than, say, Perkle Rock, or some of the others. And maybe Whispering Pines would be willing to give up a parking space in their existing lot for a dumpster that we service. So maybe some kind of hybrid approach like that, still offer the transfer station option. I mean, that's why we're having the conversation.
That would compound costs though, because then we would be.
It would. Yeah, so no matter how you shake it, creating a collection site on that relatively small scale is still a little bit expensive, but it's an initial cost.
Yeah.
And then the part of the 12,000 annual is actually already budgeted for, because it's cost that we have put in through the cost to tip the material. So
The landfill station cost 12,500?
yeah, so, you know, that's gonna be the cost of that site. Where it gets budgeted would be, you know, ongoing, we'd have permit compliance stuff, so inspections, reporting, those types of things. And then we have to pay for the bins themselves and having them serviced. And then we gotta pay to have materials processed. So
You're already paying to have.
it all rolls into that.
So that's zero.
On the permitting for the dumpster at the end of the roads. How is that different than permitting for, because it sounds like that's still a first station, or not? That, how is that different than the permit at, say, at the end of Taylor Road by the big pile of chips or something? It's not at the station, but
So if it's,
why would that be different? Because that would be collecting from.
Because you need controlled access, Leo. You can't,
But you don't need it at the end of a street that has multiple.
if it's theirs. if
it
it's-
would be, we'd have to secure it, so we'd have a lock on it or something like that.
At the end of their
That
street
people that
road.
live on that street would have access to the code. That would be an ongoing hassle. To be honest with you, it would be a tough thing to manage.
I can interrupt, in the winter time, as John Valley was just saying, at the end of the Gould Road, there is a dumpster there in the winter time.
Yeah.
And it's open to anybody that dares throw stuff in it. It's not controlled access or coded or anything
So
else.
that's
It's just there.
It's a legacy dumpster that we say is for Gold Road. And we do this.
So we're proposing more like to be legacy dumpsters in different spots around.
You know,
That, we couldn't do that.
And if you're just proposing that though.
No, we would have to get those permitted.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we permit every dumpster at the end of these tier 2 private roads. Is that what you're saying we have to do?
Yeah, we would have to propose DEP this process, this solution. They would come back to us and say, all right, what are the volumes you're gonna handle? We'd have to have, depending on the level of detail, again, we'd probably have to get drainage plans put together and things of that sort. I mean, it would be far more involved than just one spot in a controlled gated site situation that's already used for solid waste. Setbacks, there's all kinds of things that come into play for that permitting. So I can't even guarantee that we could permit it. It would be far more involved than just the one site.
And, the other option that they haven't put out here because it's so costly to individual taxpayers is all of these situations could be cured by roads being rebuilt up to town standards and the town taking the road and then becoming public. That is really not feasible, but that would be the option of being able to get the trucks down the road is to rebuild the roads and then assume them so that we could maintain them.
Probably a non-starter.
Yeah, which is why he didn't.
Yeah, there's lots of zeros with that.
So if this switch to the new collection method is starting for the in-town public roads within a month, and the permit process is gonna take us 6 months, what do we do in the interim if we decide to go with the permit process?
Jim and I would work out
Yeah, we
Okay.
would find a way to continue
we would still
the service, so the service would go uninterrupted for folks. We'd work on the transition plan, but it's not as if the third week of October, private road residents aren't gonna have any place to put their trash. We'll make sure that.
I know one resident. that
Unless
will
that's
make
what you-
sure.
I can't speak for all the private roads.
I can speak for one private road, a tier 2 road, Hemlock Point Road. So between John Dudley and Mark and I, we're getting a lot, real heavy representation from the landing area there. Couple of thoughts. First of all, I think the new pickup system is a blessing. It's wonderful. I wish everybody could do it. I've been in love with it since I first saw it in Australia 15 or 20 years ago. It makes total sense to do this. Unfortunately, understanding that our road probably would not qualify to get one of those trucks down without major restructuring of power lines and tree branches and the substrate of the road, which does like that in the spring and would probably leave ruts this deep. It's enough problem as it is now. So I don't think that is going to be a feasible alternative for Hemlock Point Road. I also don't believe that any proposal that proposes the elderly or infirm move one of these things full of trash anywhere is just unreasonable, much less put it into a small car and transport it to a dumpster at the end of the road. Just not feasible. So we need to take that off the table. I think the one option that I see that is palatable for this particular selection of roads is the last option where we maintain the current service with a rear load truck. And if that can be built into other stops around Orono and develop a separate route servicing the private roads and those individual commercial operations where they currently use rear loading trucks, to me, that makes the most sense. And I do know that from the feedback I've heard from neighbors, to start a thing where we have to take our trash to the transfer station on Wednesdays and Saturdays, free or not, especially if it's better if it's free, of course, is still a less desirable option than maintaining the current level of service.
So what do you do during the winter? When the trucks,
Sorry?
what do you do in the winter, sir, when the trucks can't get down your road? The rear, do you have to haul it out to the end of the road or what do you do?
I do not ever remember, maybe there was one time that the truck was not able to get down Hemlock Point Road.
Okay.
So that so far has not entered the equation.
But there are the private roads that clearly.
There are some that are far more challenging. There have been times where we haven't been able to get down that particular road. And folks would hold on to their material till the next week, or perhaps even use the dumpster that's right at the end of the road where the Gould Road utilizes the dumpster. It's likely that some stuff may have ended up in that dumpster because it's right there where the two roads really come together.
It's really there are only 3 private roads you go down in the winter. Hemlock Point, Elliott's Landing Road, and Dufort Lane.
And people that live on those roads that don't get serviced in the winter, they have to make their own arrangements, and that's what they've traditionally done.
Well, the others bring their, either you live on Gould Road and there's the dumpster that's provided, or they bring them to the end of the road anyway. So.
And this cost that we have on this final option that we're talking about now, that would maintain a route with a rear collection truck staffed by people for this price that I know is flipped, so we're looking at the 19,500 a year. That's only, however, for the tier 2 roads, right? What would it cost to put the tier 1 roads back in? Do we know? Is it double? Is it?
They're still gonna get,
Right, I'm just remembering this gentleman's concerns who was talking about the length of driveways and how heavy those are and
I
people
think
trying
he
to
was
move
on,
them that are.
he wasn't on a tier 1 road. He actually just has a long driveway.
Oh, he's not on a tier 1? I
But
thought he
right
was.
now,
Okay,
they put their trash on at the end of the road.
right,
I understood. I
The
just
issue
thought
is
he was talking
they don't
that
wanna
this
bring
is so much heavier to get to the end of the road.
So
and more
we
awkward,
can
right?
offer a smaller version, right?
There could be an option, if you were interested in securing additional carts of a smaller size
Okay.
and creating a list for requests to swap to a smaller container size.
Yeah.
There's a 64-gallon one that's a bit smaller than that. It's still not something that's gonna fit in the back of a van.
Yeah.
Realistically, I can tell you from experience with Bangor, we deployed about 12,000 carts in Bangor. We had a list going for the smaller carts when they came in. The majority of the people that we called up and said, hey, your cart's here, and they'd already utilized the 96-gallon cart. They said, you know what, I'm just gonna stick with the big one because that way I've got it when I need it for holidays and things like that. I think it's a little big to look at initially, and there's a little bit of a factor there that comes into play. But once people wheel them around and realize that they're well balanced with your material in there, they're easy to move. Yes, if you have a long driveway, it's gonna take you a while to get it there. But it is an option, we can provide, they even make a little tiny one that you could get to that level if you wanted to, but then you're dealing with more logistics, more challenges. If the wheels break, they're under warranty, they have a 10-year warranty. So if the lids and wheels, if there's an issue with that, we take care of those issues, but now we're getting into stocking multiple size wheels and, uniformity plays quite a role in the cost effectiveness of the process, but it's always an option.
But it is an option for folks who really are struggling with how to move that bin around. We could find a solution for
we can
them.
switch them out.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Do we have any more comments online? I don't wanna, okay. So we've heard a variety of options. We've heard a number of comments. I guess Rob needs some direction from us, so. What are we thinking?
Seems like the personal pickup is the least, is the one that's most responsive to residents and the least upfront costs and delays in terms of permitting. So feels like that, but
Yeah. And that's using existing infrastructure. So if, we have a couple-year contract on that and wanted to reevaluate and think about a different system going forward.
I wouldn't even
we're not-
necessarily
it's not a-
do a contract
Yeah.
on it. The way we
Right.
work on stuff, this
Uh-huh.
is kind of a secondary scenario
Mhm.
and we can shift on the fly.
Yeah.
If you get feedback from the community and they say, hey, actually, we're kind of interested in whatever it may be,
Yeah.
we'll work with the town. This is kind of a secondary
Yeah.
project that we've got here dealing with this. So
you gonna hold the line though for us in terms of people have concerns that they don't want to use the bins and they, hey, I want to get on this pride, I want to get on this, I see my, so you.
Yeah,
you
so
have
we're
no
not gonna
interest
start
in-
just taking everything that's at the end of driveways. I assure you of that. 'Cause
Okay.
Time is valuable, so.
Sometimes it's important to, transition the conversation to the higher authority. In this case, you've got the contract for the.
Yeah, our crew actually has this map already. Because we were talking about it internally, looking at how much time it would take us to do the tier 2 roads, and that's how we developed the pricing for this. So the last thing we would want to do is start taking stuff that other people were dragging out because it's gonna take us more time and it's something that we wouldn't be receiving payment for.
Yeah.
So that's not. a good thing
Inevitably,
for
someone.
anybody.
Inevitably, someone will see the personal, the personal touch of these private roads. Think I want that too. How do I get that? And I don't know, I guess that's maybe a raw phone call, but.
So we're talking about keeping this traditional collection for tier 2, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that seems like the most straightforward way
Do no
for
harm.
me as well. I think it still wouldn't hurt to make sure that the public is notified that there would be like a possibility for us to change how we do trash collection in the future and but I don't want to cause.
I just
confusion
want to
either.
clarify that
don't wanna
I'm
lead with-
fluid on
with,
this,
like,
but
you're-
not on the
you're
other
not
contract.
ready to change your method of trash collection. Your neighborhood is sort of grandfathered into the way things have been. If you'd like the town council to evaluate other options such as transfer station, please feel free to be in touch with them, like something like that. I mean, if there are people who would prefer that, I'd love to know, but so far what we've heard is that people would
I
prefer to
mean,
keep the
we
old
seem to
system.
have, I didn't.
Yeah,
And we can revisit this.
Yeah.
Every year we talk about trash during the budget times.
it's true.
I was gonna say, we
It's
should
true.
talk about a transfer station idea.
Yeah.
So for clarity. Not to stop the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, It seems though council is in favor of proceeding with the tier 1 roads as we had planned, so provide those residents with bins and they'll be asked to bring those out to the nearest intersecting public way.
Yeah, and maybe notified if possible that if they'd prefer to kind of leave their bins in permanent storage toward the end of their driveways,
Yeah.
they're welcome to do that.
And they'll also be informed of the option to get. a
Smaller bins,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
In this, we'll still do the dumpsters at Gould's in the winter, right? I assume.
Status quo.
Yeah.
Sleeping dogs.
Do we want to treat Elliott's Landing Road the same way we treat Goulds though, where we at least put times of year so that we're not going back and forth and having to make decisions about, we'll pick it up, we won't pick it up.
I would love that. We time out the dumpsters at the Gould Road. Years ago, we established the time frame that corresponds with the winter parking ban. Because it's a consistent thing and it's, typically that's the season. So I would be in favor of that because I know it does create a lot of confusion for the residents and additional work for Rob and his crew as well as ours. So if there was an opportunity to establish some parameters that said, hey, we've done this for several years, it's a recurring issue. How about we go forward in that direction? I would certainly support that from the contractor's perspective, but not my decision to make, just giving you my 2 cents.
Cans.
Hmm.
We'd have to figure out where the cans.
Would you put the cans or would you have them just bring it all to the end of the road like they do sometimes during the?
Given the feedback we get,
And that's how we would handle. So for example, Park of Rock, the Park Rock Landing Road is the same thing.
Right, they bring
All
everything to the public way.
yeah, all the time.
You're right.
I think those are probably operational things Rob can work out as long as he has some direction from us on.
I guess if Rob and Jim find a way to make the timing on Elliott's Landing Road work to have a schedule, I'm just wanting to make sure council would support that. Because there will be people who are not happy about
What does that
So-
road do in the winter? I don't know that I'm clear on what their trash pickup situation is like during the winter months when you can't get in. Or the mud months, or whichever months they are.
Yeah, so I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. a winter. The road is in a condition that Jim's staff doesn't feel safe going down. And so I try a few people that I can contact to let them know that we're just not coming. And what we had done in the last, I think 3 years now, we send a letter to all the residents of Elliott's Landing Road, telling them that there's the possibility that if the road isn't maintained, we wouldn't be able to pick it up. And the only way that we can guarantee that your material will get picked up is if you bring it to the end of the road. So some people elect to do that, and there's probably 4 or 5 residents that consistently just put it at the end of the road, and then they don't have to worry about it, and Jim's crew can pick it up at that point. And then those certain other, days where Jim's crew can't go down, I try to get as much information out as I can, but basically there's stuff just to get picked up.
And there's not a dumpster at the end of their road, so they just leave the bags, they just leave.
A lot of them will either bring it back in
Bring it back in.
their garage or their containers back up towards their house and then just put them out the next week with 2 weeks worth of volume.
So, of course, the inconsistency of the service is where angst is, and from both sides, we want to deliver a consistent level of service, so if we can communicate that up front, maybe it wouldn't be such a big issue, but.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
that would be the biggest change if we were to make that a seasonal collection road of any of this.
And they wouldn't be expected to leave them, though, in these huge bag boxes at the end of the road. They'd be expected to just leave them like they do now, however they leave them, and the hand truck would pick them up the way they do now. The hand loaded truck.
The tier 2 roads,
Got
those residents won't receive
Yeah,
those.
I got it. Okay, thank
So
you.
what is the change? I'm not clear what we're talking about. That's gonna be a change for, it's not, or is it that it's not gonna be a change, it's just that for Elliott's Landing?
It's up
So what Sophie had proposed is that we only go down that road during, like 3/4 of the year. So in the winter, we ask those residents to bring it to the end.
But that's not what we do now.
No, now we go down the road when we can in the
Yeah.
winter. If we can't, we don't pick it up at all.
So I think I was under the impression that if we did this, we would still be doing.
Yeah, I think that's what I understood too. So
Okay.
this was kind of in addition to, if you want to evaluate that, that might be something to consider. That
We
it
can
is-
continue
it
to
is-
do that, and I'll send the letter out to them telling them if they don't bring it to the end, we won't, they can't guarantee that we can get it, and there'll be 3 or 4, 5 weeks a year where we just don't get their stuff picked up. That's
And council just needs to understand there will be a lag because Jim will go out, look at the road, determine that it's not safe. They'll talk back and forth. We might miss 2 weeks before we know that we're stopping the collection for X number of weeks. So
make that decision.
it took us 2 weeks before we got everybody on board. Last time we did this, before the phone stopped ringing in my office.
But we're not increasing the lag. We're
That's not-
maintaining this level of service that people currently enjoy.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
I
so.
think that's where we're comfortable at.
All right, so that would be Whispering Pines, Dew 4 Lane, Elliott's Landing Road, Gould Road, Hemlock Point Road, Purple Rock Landing Road, Webster Point, and Wallace Lane.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was nice work.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was a good discussion, and I'm glad we had great presentation to chew on with that.
Hands off to Rob. Good work with those maps. I don't know who else helped with those.
Megan Hess.
Megan Hess.
Our environmental services coordinator is also pretty good at making maps.
Okay, I'm gonna move on because we have a number of items to talk about tonight. Next item is an update on town council potluck series.
Sure, I think that's me. Quick update, things are going well in general, just some things I wanted to touch base with council about. Counselors in attendance on October 1st. I haven't necessarily gotten responses, but I think I heard yes from Sonia, yes from Dan. First community potlucks October 1st on a Sunday in the afternoon. Yes from Rob. If others of you are coming, let me know, because then I will sort of assign some duties to folks who are going to be there. So if I haven't heard from you,
Tempted me to let you know.
very, very easy. It's like greet people and hand out name tags, Leo. It's fun.
It's in the Keith Anderson building, which is on
It's
the
in the
Fennec Road.
Anderson, Right,
Where would that be?
Yeah.
So October 1st, you're
at
looking for.
4:30. Yep, and I promise they're easy,
think so.
fun things,
I
but
think
just let me
so.
know if you're coming.
I'm most likely, let me,
Okay.
I'll confirm.
Moving on,
So,
publicity is going well. Dan created a document to track where the publicity is going out. Sophie got things out on the sign and I think some kind of email or message has gone out.
Yep, it's been great.
I was wondering if the sign could at some point switch to just say like October 1st, Sunday, October 1st, instead of every first Sunday, just to make it sort of obvious which the date is for the first one. Do you think that's possible, Sophie? Okay. I've been delivering signs to lots of businesses. They're showing up in windows everywhere around town. People have been super excited about the idea. I have a couple of questions that have come from conversations with businesses as I've been dropping them off that I wanted to quickly bring back to council. Some businesses have said, oh, could we donate something? You know, is that fine? And can we have a little card that says we donated it? I was assuming, haven't given any answers, but my thought was that if businesses want to donate, that's great. I'm assuming we don't want people selling things, but if people want to donate, I didn't see a problem with a little card saying donated by this local business next to the whatever thing has been donated for the potluck. Is that fine with council? And I don't know, maybe also a table where just cards could be from local businesses, because I met quite a few newer business owners in town. And I think it might be nice for the whole community to know about some businesses that are new or old, however long they've been there, that folks might not have used. Does anyone have a problem if we let local businesses have their cards?
I love that. I think
Somewhere?
it's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that got brought up was the DIB committee spoke a little bit about the potlucks, and they brought up issue that the bus service in Orono doesn't run on Sundays. So for folks who rely on the buses for transportation, it might be harder to get to the potluck. They were going to reach out on campus to see about running potentially some campus shuttles for folks coming from that way. I'm wondering if we as a town want to look at our own little shuttle bus. I think that's a cost and staff. So my guess is not. Are we interested in taking a list of people who are willing to offer other residents rides? Like, are we interested in allowing residents to sign up and say, I'm happy to bring someone else?
Service of the community sort of building element of this. I mean, if we can't get this going for this first one,
Right.
I think it's fun, but after this, maybe we could have like hey, are you willing to like be contacted about like doing some ride sharing?
Would it be possible for you to maybe whisper in a wonderful volunteer's ear that is not a town official about how great it would be if they wanted to do something like that, that was
Right,
not
that's what I was wondering. if it would be
organized by the
better. Right.
town?
Yeah.
That was my question to you, Sophie. That's why I'm bringing it up, thinking insurance reasons. And so I think we could probably find a community volunteer who'd be happy to create a community ride share thing that wasn't through us as the
Great.
council or the
Love
town.
that.
Does that sound fine to
Yeah.
folks?
Great.
Sounds great.
Okay, ticking along.
The Historical Society will have a
yes.
presence, which will be great. Meeting with them again on Tuesday to go into the archives and like make a plan. Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, which is great.
The DEIB committee has asked if they can partner with us on the second of our potlucks and try to help bring folks to it.
And I think they wanted to have a little bit of a
The couple of,
spotlighted role.
yeah, the couple of council members that were there at their meeting thought that was a great idea, but wanted to give opportunity for anyone else to give input on that. I see some nods, thumbs up, great.
That seems good.
I'll
That was my
report-
next question
report
on the
back to
list.
them that they're
Great.
invited, great.
And I was just thinking in general, after the DIB committee bringing that up, that maybe we should reach out to other groups in town who might have an interest in being a bit spotlighted on one, who we partner with, like the Orono Health Association, who, does a lot of good for our town, or the Beautification Committee, who does really cool things. And maybe in the future, some other groups might like to be a little bit spotlighted. Is that fine if I reached out to some of those groups to find out, or if Sonia did? Anyone have any objection to offer that out?
We probably should have a list of, town committee
Right.
and council partners. We already have that list. So
Right, so I'm hoping that Sophie can give me a list, other counselors can send me any they might not be on if I send it out, but that sounds great to folks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interest in how to get involved and how to make it fun in a way to share things, in the community, which is exactly what we wanted. So I think all this stuff is great, but I also didn't feel like they're decisions I should be making, we should be making as a council. On that list, also local musicians have started to say to me, hey, we'll play one for free. We heard there's live music, so that'd be great if Rob can't do one and Matt can't, as long as it's fine with you all, I'll just start a list of local musicians and groups who've said we would do that for free. That's fine. Likewise, some visual artists have started to say, ooh, what if we hang visual art each month? So, okay, if I coordinate with Sophie about whether there's hooks and make a list of visual artists who might want to do that in the future. And what was else? Oh, the library is currently partnering with Americans Who Tell the Truth for an exhibit that starts October 2nd around town. And I believe I was told we'll have like a treasure hunt component. So right away, that's one that I wanted to say, unless anyone objects, I'd like to offer to the library and the Americans Tell the Truth to set up something about that during the potluck. So people could see a little preview of what will be coming their way soon. It wouldn't involve Lori. I already talked to Connie from Americans Who Tell the Truth. So it shouldn't be any staff work. Connie would set it up. She works with Americans Who Tell the Truth, Connie Carter. Everyone feel good about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think I did it. The only other thing, trying to talk fast, is just a heads up on the food. Just, I want to say this in case any public are listening, like, this is not a potluck where you have to bring anything. If you can bring something, great. If you can't, for any reason, coming straight from work, it's a hard month financially, whatever, don't bring, just come. What we want is people to come and join together, and there will be plenty of food no matter what. And we're going to do our best to label food for ingredients so that people with allergies will be able to navigate it as well as possible.
Thank you.
It's
How'd I
fantastic.
do?
Excited.
Okay.
Really excited.
Really fun.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you to those of you doing all the work to make, it's been great.
When you're ready, will you let me know so I could tell you about logistics, but why don't you finish this part?
And I meant to say thank you hugely to Megan, who met some of us to show us the building and the lift. And thanks to Sophie for setting that up. Sorry, that was also on my list.
So I think that runs at that item. We do want to have one other opportunity for public comment. If anybody is online. Good. Then we'll do our only order of business, which is moving into executive session.
So do you know what you're gonna do with number 8? Because that depends on whether we tell people what's up there.
I think we have not discussed what we're going to do with number 8. So our plan is to plan on coming back.
Okay, so in order to make this work, because we have one Zoom account, I'm going to close the webinar.
Okay.
We're gonna start an executive session meeting with the town attorney. When you're done, you can let me know and I'll come back and swap us back. So at this point, I would say you want your, you want to make your votes and then I'll change.
Okay, so we need a motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056E for consultation with the town attorney regarding council rights and responsibilities. So move. Second. All those in favor? We are in at 7:19.
So Matt, you're gonna want to use the executive session meeting invite that I gave you on the email with that I sent out yesterday.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get out of this then, right?
Okay, all right, I'm ending this.